Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 6.
I can report to the nation, aggression is defeated, the war is over.
Former President George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, has died at the age of 94. He was a victorious commander-in-chief in the first Gulf War, the last U.S. president to have served in World War II, and only the second U.S. president ever to see his own son elected to that office. His wife of 73 years, Barbara Bush, died in April, and Mr. Bush was hospitalized the day after the funeral to be treated for an infection in his bloodstream. He suffered from a number of health issues in his later years, including a condition similar to Parkinson's disease, and used a wheelchair to get around. His son, former President George W. Bush, issued a statement calling his father, quote, a man of the highest character and the best dad or son or daughter could ask for. On June 12th, Mr. Bush celebrated his 94th birthday with family members in Maine, becoming the first U.S. president in history to reach that age. The American flag at the White House is at half-staff in honor of President George H.W. Bush, along with flags here in North Dakota and Minnesota. A family has been displaced after a fire caused significant damage to their home on 14th Street North in Fargo this morning. Officials tell us there were 3 adults and an infant inside when the home caught fire. When crews arrived on scene, all of them were able to safely exit the house. Several pets were also inside and safely removed from the home. An official with the fire department says the fire was put out quickly and no one was injured. The fire department wants to remind everyone to never re-enter a home to retrieve pets or belongings. They also want to remind people to check their smoke alarms and make sure to have an escape plan. The cause of this fire is under investigation. Calm weather for now here in the Southern Valley, and it sounds like it's going to stay that way for most of our weekend. Let's check in with meteorologist Justin Fanfarelli for the latest on what we can expect. Justin?
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. Good evening, everybody. We've been dealing with some fog, especially in our western counties over the past 24 hours or so. We have good news on that account. The fog between Jamestown Valley City and the Devil's Lake Basin has lifted in the past couple of hours. Still visibility around 6 or 7 miles. The densest fog now between Cando and Langdon up north toward the Canadian border. Some areas are seeing visibilities of less than 1/4 of a mile. The wind is also picked up. We're seeing wind speeds 15 to 30 miles per hour from a cold northerly direction, but most of us are staying dry with mostly cloudy skies, maybe a few snow showers into Grant County and points off to the south. As most of us see temperatures into the 20s, we see the winter storm missing us to our south and to our east. So we're going to stay quiet through tonight. We got mostly cloudy skies, and it will turn breezy if it hasn't yet where you are, with winds from the north 15 to 30, temperatures falling back through the 20s. Now, we're going to have another cold snap that's going to last most of the week. We'll have the details later in the newscast.
Okay, at least we have a little break from snow, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're going to have a pretty long break from any significant moisture.
Okay, great. Thank you, Justin. An air ambulance that crashed in western North Dakota this month and killed all 3 people on board did not send out a distress call before it broke apart in midair. What caused the breakup is still a mystery, but there's no indication that the airplane was struck by anything, and there was no fire on board. Weather also is not believed to have been a factor. The November 18th crash northwest of Bismarck killed 48-year-old pilot Todd Lasky, 63-year-old nurse Bonnie Cook, and 47-year-old paramedic Chris Iverson. They were on their way to Williston to pick up a patient. Minnesota Governor-elect Tim Walz is making his way around the state as part of his One Minnesota Listening Tour. From Minneapolis to Moorhead, Walz's tour has caught the attention of many living throughout Minnesota, with crowds filling the frying pan in Moorhead today. Walz says the purpose of this tour is to hear from people throughout the state and see what they want from their government. He says, as he has traveled through many cities in Minnesota, education, affordable health care, and transportation are reoccurring topics of concern. John Bell says he thinks it's important that Walz hears the concerns from people all over the state and finds a common ground for everyone.
I'm just looking forward to seeing what he does. I'm really glad to see the turnout of this room today. This room was packed full of people, from Democrats to Republicans and anywhere in between.
Walz is stopping in over 24 communities throughout the state and will continue his tour through December 3rd, ending in Duluth, Minnesota. A Fargo man has pleaded not guilty in the shooting death of his father. 34-year-old Christopher Riley is charged with murder in the late September death of 6-year-old Kevin Riley Sr. at his son's apartment. Authorities say Christopher Riley called 911 to report a suicide at the apartment, but there was evidence of a fight prior to the shooting. An autopsy confirmed a homicide. Riley entered his not guilty plea on Thursday. He faces up to life in prison without parole if convicted. An Alexandria man apologized to his teenage victim, her family, and his own children Friday as he was sentenced to 25 years in prison in connection with a high-profile 2017 kidnapping and sexual assault case. 33-year-old Thomas Barker showed little emotion as he stood in a Douglas County courtroom and made his first public statement since being arrested in September of 2017. Following the 25-year sentence, Barker will remain on conditional release for the rest of his life. Barker was convicted of 1 count of kidnapping and 2 counts of sexual assault. The case happened in 2017 when a 15-year-old girl was reported missing. She wasn't heard from until weeks later when she jumped out of a pickup truck and swam across Lake Carlos to escape her captors. The girl told police how Barker, the father of one of her friends, came to her home that night and said his son was not behaving and that he needed her for help. The victim got in Barker's truck and he proceeded to his residence, where he zip-tied her, pointed a gun at her, and sexually assaulted her. Relief could be on the way for some local families as Congress moves to abolish seclusion in schools. Both the House and the Senate have introduced the Keeping All Students Safe Act, which would end seclusion and limit how schools can restrain students. According to the Council for Children with Behavioral Disorders, seclusion and restraints can cause children significant psychological damage, physical injury, or death, and there is little evidence that the practice is effective in changing student behavior. Child protection advocates say the legislation could have a big impact in North Dakota, where there aren't any statewide policies for seclusion and restraint.
They can't force anybody to put it in their statute, but we're certainly going to use it. Those of us that are in education and special education and child protection are certainly going to say, look, here's a federal act. It says you can't do that.
When asked about the Keep All Students Safe Act, North Dakota's Superintendent of Public Instruction says, quote, "This issue is regulated by states, and my instinct is that states should lead on this issue and not have something imposed by the federal government." For more on this act, you can head over to our website, valleynewslive.com. A recently renovated county jail in Minnesota is now better equipped to treat inmates with mental health issues with its separate behavioral health unit and increased resources for inmates. The Clay County Correctional Facility in Moorhead underwent a $52 million renovation that included adding an 18-bed behavioral health unit. The unit features soundproofing to help keep noise to a minimum, as well as individual cells and a shared space outside the cells. Staff members hope to keep more data on inmates with mental illness and expand training and programming to address inmates' mental health needs. The county has also approved having 2 full-time mental health care providers work from the jail. 2 police officers are on paid leave after pictures of a Christmas tree in North Minneapolis went viral. What was on the tree is still to come on Valley News Live at 6.